Goal in this congregation to extend our hearts and welcome to you, whatever the circumstances of your life. We are connected, particularly connected today, through our desire to live out our ideals of peace, love, and justice for all. We are here to love one another and encourage each other in our spiritual growth. Our congregational mission includes our commitment to nurture one another, serve the community, and inspire action to heal the world. Following some opening words, Victoria will light the chalice, and if you have a candle or a chalice of your own handy, we invite you to light it along with her. And our opening words are by Brian Kiley. In times of darkness, we stumble toward the tiny flame. In times of cold, we seek the warming fire. In times of repression, we reach for the lamp of truth. In times of loss, we pray for the comforting light. In times of joy, we light a candle of celebration. Spirit of life, as we kindle this light, help us find what we need this day.
Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words. May this flame be our light of friendship and love.
Now we're going to sing together hymn number 1002, Comfort Me. And I think we actually have words today, which is kind of exciting. So feel free to sing along. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me.
So this morning, I want you to have a chance to take some quiet time and let heart and mind and spirit catch up to each other. So if you'll find a comfortable place, I'm going to read a prayer for a time of pandemic. I will have a couple of moments of silence, seconds of silence, and then Cindy will be chanting with us, and you'll be able to see the words for that. This morning, our words are from the Roman Catholic Diocese of Norwich, and I love these words, which were shared with me by Barb Wallace. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors remember those who are most vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health or making their rent. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools are closed remember those who have no options. May we who have to cancel our trips remember those who have no safe place to go. May we who lose our margin money in the tumult of the economic market remember those who have no margin at all. May we who settle in quarantine at home remember those who have no home. As fear grips our world, let us choose love over and over again. And during this time when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other, let us find ways to be the loving embrace of the holy to our neighbors. Amen. So when Carl and I lived in California, we were often asked by people outside of the state how we could stand to live with earthquakes. And no matter what kind of unique weather or environmental factors might have affected their home, it seemed like people were very leery of living where the ground moves beneath your feet. And so I know that it's true, earthquakes can be deadly. We have experience of that, but so can hurricanes and avalanches. And I'd have to say as well that while they aren't deadly, I personally don't want to live in southeastern United States oppressive humidity, which we get a clue of every once in a while here in Hamilton. I don't want to live in the extreme heat of Arizona, and I don't really want to live in the biting cold of Canada's far north. I guess you pick your battles. So to tell you the truth, I never found earthquakes to be really so hard to deal with. And I should add, however, a caveat to that is that we didn't have a truly big one during the 15 years that we lived in California. No, I'll tell you, for me, it was coping with the aftershocks that caused me to feel anxious. The initial earthquake hits without warning. And so you just ride it out, and it usually only lasts for a few seconds. And frankly, by the time you figure out what's happening, it's usually over. However, then you know the first wave is hit and the impacts are beyond anything we've ever experienced, maybe even affecting our own family and friends. So we've quickly had to adapt and learn how to ride it out as safely as we can. We've been bombarded with news and instructions and advice and restrictions. And I know that I have felt, and I'm sure you have felt at times, confused and concerned and conflicted. And as time marches on and our self-isolation regime continues, we're starting to move beyond our initial unknowing and confusion. Now we're a bit more familiar with what life looks like in a pandemic. We've adapted new routines and approaches to life that hopefully are keeping us as safe as possible and helping others stay safe as well. So now we're starting to experience what feels like the aftershocks to me, like finding out that someone close to us has been diagnosed with COVID-19 or has been already felled by the virus. Learning that we're going to have to be isolated for more than just a few weeks. Realizing that what we think of as normal may never actually be normal again. So in addition to all of our other emotions, as those aftershocks are hitting, we're also starting to, if we haven't already, been feeling a certain amount of grief. And I think as it goes on, we're going to feel that more and more deeply. Grief for the time when we're not able to spend in the company of those we love. Grief for the potential and the promise that were lost with each life that passed. Grief for the hopes and the dreams we had for the future that may be impossible now, or at least unlikely. Grief for what we feel that we have lost in all of the panic. I know that all of us have experienced grief before. It's not new, but this is certainly a different scale. And it's going to take time for us to find enough mental capacity to make meaning out of what we're experiencing, to create that story that our mind will use to put things into perspective for us, to help focus the picture, calm our fears and anxieties, and find our path forward with life. If your mind focuses on the past and what used to be, you're living in your memories, and they can be, as you know, happy or painful. If your mind tends to focus on the future, what you hope will be, you're living in dreams, some of them fulfilling and perhaps some of them not very satisfying. The truth is, we can only live in this present moment, right here, right now, as our breath enters our body and we exhale the current moment to move on to the next. The Buddhist philosophers tell us that it is our attachment to what was and what we wish for and for what will be that causes us to suffer. They suggest to us that through mindfulness and other practices, we can learn about being in the moment and letting go of expectations that set us up for pain and disappointment. When we learn to live in the moment, we create the opportunity for greater serenity, focus, and balance in our lives. And we also expand our patience, compassion, and our sense of well-being. I just recently read an article that I thought was quite good, and I thank the folks who passed it on to me. It was by Dr. David Kessler, who is a colleague of Dr. Kubler-Ross, who you may remember was the famous woman who wrote about grief, studied grief, and talked about the stages of grief when we are confronted with a loss in our lives. Dr. Kessler tells us that it is very normal to feel what we feel in response to our current situation. And he asks us to remember that while it seems like it may go on forever, this is actually only a temporary state of being. It is a time to overprotect, but not to overreact. He also encourages us to keep trying to find that place of balance and mindfulness, to acknowledge our emotions, including our grief, and then let those emotions move through us. He says it's particularly important to let ourselves feel our grief and keep going. And it's ironic to me that the very thing that is creating so much discomfort in our lives is also a thing that is creating the opportunity for us to learn to cope with our new reality. This is a pause in life for many of us. We find we have more time than we've had for a long, long time. So we could find the time to practice mindfulness. We could slow down and focus on our breath. We could feel our feelings as they arise and not block them because they frighten us, but just acknowledge them and allow them to move through us and see what happens. So I'd like to, this week, encourage you to make good use of this unique time, this very singular opportunity in our lives. I'm not saying that I hope that we have these pauses on a regular basis. Let's just make it a once and done. But in this place, let's truly find a place of pause in our lives. Remember to wash your hands, settle your mind, and then breathe into this moment. Blessed be. Blessed be.
Now we're going to sing another hymn together, number 168, One More Step. One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step, one more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll take one more word, one more prayer. We will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared. Everyone will say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Before moving into our closing words and the postlude. So the first announcement is a social event, upcoming social event, a UU family event next Friday night, a pajama party and story night. And Tim has asked me to share that this will be the first UU family event held online, and it will run from 6 to 7:30 next Friday night. So you can dress in your pajamas or not. Maybe you could just wear the ones you have on now and join us after dinner for some stories, songs, and an opportunity for families to check in with their friends. Now, Tim will be sending out a message next week, and it will have more details and a link. So if you want to follow that up, and if your family would like to share a favorite storybook and read it to those attending or perform a song, please let Tim know. And a Zoom invitation will be circulated by all church email in the middle of the week. And I believe you can reach Tim at uuhamilton.ca. And he's nodding to say that's correct. Other folks in the church have formed teams who will be contacting our congregants next week, beginning next week. So everyone will receive a phone call checking in to see how things are going and if there's any assistance or advice that you need. And I've also been asked to mention that there's a part of the service that we are missing, which is the offering. We haven't yet figured out how to pass the plate via Zoom. We're working on it. But in the meantime, we're asking that if you are able, and we understand that circumstances have changed for some, but if you are able, please honor your pledges. And if you care to give a donation, you can go to our church website, and there's a donate button there. You can do it that way, and it will help us pay the bills, because like everyone, we still have some bills to pay, and be able to provide continuing support to you. And I also wanted to add that there are resources for dealing with COVID to be found on our church website. So if you go to the website, you will see information there that may be of value to you as we deal with our current situation. Our closing words are by Maureen Killering. As we weather winds of change, may we have wisdom to cherish the moments of silence. As we recollect times of challenge and of pain, may we remember also the graceful blessings of our lives. And as we look to future unknowns, may we have the boldness to trust that there is unimagined good yet to come. Amen.
With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose to bless the world. With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose to bless the world. With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose to bless the world. With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose to bless the world. With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose to bless the world. With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose